board member of. I am the board member of Panthlon Clube de LIsboa. I'll be moderating this afternoon session, and as Duarte mentioned, we have quite some agenda here, and therefore I will skip, or I will just start with the presentation of our speakers. Simona Kahlo, hello, is the Secretary General of Panthlon International. Amongst other projects, she coordinated already Panthlon Friendly Games, Ethical Plaques, Literary Competition, International Fair Play Awards, European Week of Sport. So you see we have here quite a good profile to have us here, also giving some insight on this. We have, of course, also Gabriel Kochofa, which is the Secretary General of the PCU Committee. Gabriel is also the CEO of the International Coordination Council of Alumni and the Secretary General of the International Federation for Inter-University Sport. So welcome, Gabriel, as well. We have also Antonio Bramant, which is a member of the Scientific Committee of Panathlon International. And Antonio has a PhD in laser studies in parks management from the Pennsylvania State University, USA. He's also a member of Panthlon Clube Sorocaba from Brazil. Welcome, Antonio. We have also Mario Almeida, which is the president of Panthlon Clube de LIsboa. You already heard from President at the beginning of this session. He's also the president of Korfball Federation in Portugal. He holds a master's degree from the Wales University and Robert Kennedy College. Last but not least, of course, Niels van der Velden. Niels is the president of the Panthlon Club Antwerp, Belgium, and the sports coordinator at the University of Antwerp. He's also secretary of the Flemish University of Sports Federation and board member of the Belgian University Sports Federation. Again, welcome everyone. I hope this session is going to be, of course, also interesting for you. And maybe we could already start with, and this is, I think, the first two groups, let's say, of questions. We will, of course, give a little bit light to the actual problem. But then my idea is also to really try to see what we can, of course, achieve to resolve it. So for the current situation and challenges that we are facing, we, Panthlon International, Panthlon clubs, and also the PCU, and we all know we have the core values of Panthlon International cover not only solidarity but also fair play and ethics, and this is also core of our mission. So taking that in consideration, and we already heard from Duarte, we have lots of participants from Panthlon clubs, so which are already well known to this message. But maybe for the other ones that don't belong here, it would be important for us to give a short overview about the situation, and therefore I would ask Simona to start by telling us, the challenges in current situation for Panthlon International regarding this.
Thank you, Fabio, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to meet you in this platform that allows us to meet new and old friends to discuss general issues, especially about Panthlon. We experienced a sudden lockdown situation that involved the whole planet and all the activities from social and economic. The realities are different from countries to countries, but sport sector and ours, which based its activity on conviviality and meetings, has been frozen all over the world. Now the situation has improved, and we are starting to think about phase 2 in Italy, Europe, and the rest of the world. As you know, the headquarters of Panthlon International is in Italy, in Rapallo, in the province of Genoa, where we had to immediately comply with the government directives that have decreed the closure of any activities, except those are basic necessity, so that all the staff of the secretariat works in smart working, sometimes partially as needed. We have tried to organize our work from home, setting up a workstation, moving the entire archive to the cloud, managing the emails, management, accounting, the graphic programs, carrying out detailed commitment as in the office. At the beginning of April, we made a video conference with the President's Committee and a meeting with the International Board with the simultaneous translation. Early in June, we will organize another meeting of the President's Committee. The magazine, which has been published regularly, has also been translated into the 6 languages of Panathlon, but has only been emailed to all members. Panathlon, which is an association of clubs based on volunteering, has the main purpose of uniting individuals in a single sport ideals, regardless of special interests, political convictions, social classes, and age, to become an instrument on union of people. It acts to spread an idea of sport inspired by the ethics and the responsibility, solidarity and fair play as an element of culture, values that are the basis of a healthy sport practice. But also training people aware for a better society. Panathlon has greater social value. In this context of social emergency, it can and must do its part, changing and adapting to the new reality that we are expecting.
Timona, thank you very much. It was perfectly on time. So it's a great to have that insight on what we of course see actually on the current situation also from Panathlon International. It is important for us to understand that we are, as you mentioned, we are not we didn't stop, let's say, and therefore we are trying to, with the magazines and with the communication that also providing, we are trying to not lose track of what actually is also happening. So Gabriel, maybe I would pass the message to you. Can you tell us a little bit, about maybe also the PCU, what the current situation challenges? I know that the games that were scheduled, for example, had some changes. So can you please tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, good day, dear friends of Panathlon family. Good day, Fabio. Thanks for giving me the floor. But
sure.
Yes. First of all, let me start. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes,
yeah.
I can. I think
okay.
Everyone can hear you.
Okay, so first of all, let me start to say thanks to the organizing committee. Thanks to all those people who put us together today to discuss about very important topics. You know, the crisis of coronavirus has changed our life, has changed everything in our life, and it's still ongoing. In Russia, in Africa, like in Moscow, the situation, hello? Yes, the situation is not easy at all. And as you can see, the impact on sport and social life, the impact on our life in general is very, very big. The situation in Benin, the country from where am I, the situation in Africa or in Russia is not at all easy. Everything has changed. Now, the challenges all of us are facing daily is social health. We are facing now extra challenges. For instance, how to organize games, how to reorganize our calendar because of this virus. All the events and games are postponed, and some games, as Fabi were telling FISU, even in FISU, International Federation of Student Youth in Sport, all our events are also postponed. Challenges we are facing are very simple. We are thinking about the possibility to hold events when the government are making some restriction. When are the government are going to open the border to change the law in their own country to allow students to participate to some events? That is the biggest problem. Coming back to PCU committee, as we were talking about, you can see that the events we are planning for this year in April, the games, the branch games, and so all of them are postponed to after summer. Curveball is bringing people together from all over the world. We face the challenge of still reaching this goal. Why not being able to travel, living in a social distancing society? So that is the biggest challenges we are facing, but I'm sure by the effort of all of us, members of Panathlon family will reach this aim. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much as well. I mean, I noted down that one of the main points, let's say, one of the problems is the borders that are closed, and I fully agree. I mean, and this is something that we have to discuss, and I know, and we all have heard that it's slowly they are slowly opening up. So I mean, it's of course it is related with many factors, we know, and therefore I think we just have to also accompany and really also get along and see what is going to happen in the next couple of months. But I'm sure that this topic is quite a hot topic, and it's of course something that we will debate in the next couple of days, weeks. Bramant, again, thank you also for joining. Hello. I would also like to listen from you, if possible, the current situation, challenges. I mean, you are a member of one of the Panthlon clubs in Brazil, as I mentioned. You are also from the scientific committee of Panthlon International. What is your side on this topic?
Well, first of all, I thank you all, especially Panthlon of Lisbon, for the invitation. It is new for all of us to participate in this type of meetings. And the 4 questions that were proposed before to the group for us who are going to talk to you, they are interrelated. So I made some notes, and I hope that I will follow the directions that were established. I've been member of Panthlon clubs for the past 30 years in Panthlon Club of Sorocaba. I think is the largest one in Brazil. And I think that we have several challenges, and I'll bring this situation to Panathlon, more to Panathlon than I should say inside, and then afterwards we'll talk about outside. Inside, I think we have some challenges before, during, and after COVID-19. And that I want to say that for most of volunteer organizations, there is a great challenge to attract and retain associates, members. So what I see Panthlon during the past 10 years as a member of this commission, international commission, that we have Panthlons that stay as a fellowship club. A second stage, not as important, not in the hierarchy of importance, but a service, community service clubs. And now more recently as knowledge production and diffusion. And I think we should balance these 3 dimensions of Panathlon identity so we can attract and retain more people. Another question, another challenge that I have put here is how to attract more women to Panathlon. You know, this is a great opportunity for us to enlarge our associates and more and women like young people. How and in that position, I think Panthlon International should review the policies for junior clubs to create the new generation, the next generation of Panthlon associate. And we know that in order for us to stay in a volunteer association, there should be a special meaning and purpose. And that, I think, is another challenge for us Panathlon members. So, and the numbers of Panathlon Brazil, please tell me when I finish, because I'm not so, I speak more than I should. But we have 17 active Panathlon clubs in Brazil. And we have also created a figure of Panathlon delegates in 8 other cities. So now we have 312 clubs, and over 6% of them are over 6 years old. So that's something to observe.
And that's quite interesting. I would, if possible, we would stop here, because indeed we have, I've took some notes, and I think the dimensions that you mentioned, the 3 dimensions, are really fundamental to really understand how can we, also in this time that we're facing, how can we attract more people to join and to also share Panathlon ideas, and also, of course, the mission that we also have to follow. And you mentioned also how can we attract women to Panathlon. Those are questions that we should keep in mind, and of course should debate, because they are really interesting. I mean, and maybe we can listen afterwards to some comments. I would pass now to the last intervention on this topic, the word to Mario, if possible. Mario, could you provide us with your overview regarding current situation?
Good afternoon. Coming here. Are you hearing okay, Fabio? Okay, fine. Okay, thank you to everybody to join us. We are this afternoon trying to speak a little bit in global terms, and this is what society is nowadays. We decided to organize this topic just because, in terms of international conference, because the epidemic of coronavirus is an international topic nowadays. And as everything happens in life, it is with a very little change in our life. And our little change in our life is this, okay? So this changes our life. This is a mask, okay? So we have to change everything we do just because of a mask. And definitely this happens in Portugal when we were just jumping to introduce transformations in the Panthlon Club in terms of projects, and trying to two main goals. One is coming to what Antonio told before, just to put some more young people on board, some more women on board, just to keep the club very active and very linked with the youth. And secondly is to keep the link of the Panthlon Club with the sports. Actually, what happens with most of the sports clubs I know is that people is starting to join Panthlon Club and managing the Panthlon Club in the sporting end of life. Okay, so what happens is that in a way, they don't keep the lines of communication with the athleticism, basketball, volleyball, soccer, whatever. And so this bridge between our activity and the real world of sports is quite important. And so we developed a plan which is trying to, as soon as we can, trying to include in corporate social responsibility of companies the sports as a topic. In the universities, we understand that the people going from college to the university, they lose link with sports, mainly trying to study and end up their courses. And so these adult bunch of people are not too much aware of what happens in sports and the values and the ethical topics of sports. One of the things that we will touch a little bit in the end of this call will be some topics like violence in the sport, in sports, not actually of the players of sports, but in the audience of sports. We didn't start yet all the matches, and we have violence between claques in Portugal, fighting on the street. So this thing is coming to one of our topics. And last but not least is how to join media to collaborate in promoting our values. Panthlon Clube de LIsboa is 40 years old, and is quite keen of following this tradition. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mario. Thank you very much for the intervention. I think it's quite important, and indeed it is of importance the changes that we are now facing with all of those measures, and we will come back to that later on when we address the questions of OMS, the recommendations. Again, of course, this changed and made us well. This changed definitely our lives, at least from what we were used to, let's say. And now, of course, this is something that we will have to adopt within our days. So the first block we passed now. I would just ask Duarte if we have received any questions for the first group.
No, Fabio, everything is okay. We are waiting, and we will in some minutes. I will pass the contacts again.
That Niels didn't speak at all.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Okay. That's true. Niels, please take the stage. Make the best out of it.
Thank you, Fabio, for not forgetting me in the end. Well, everybody, I would first like to thank Panthlon Lisbon for inviting me all the way from Belgium to this online meeting. I'm president of the Panthlon Club of Antwerp, and I'm also as a job, I'm a sports coordinator at the University of Antwerp. This invitation is also thanks to a personal friendship with your secretary, Duarte Lopez, who is also working university sports. So I love to share my thoughts from a Belgian and a personal point of view. And initiatives like this online meeting is only to be encouraged. Thank you. So, as is happening in most countries around the world, also Belgium is in lockdown. You see that barbers are not open. Well, actually they opened last week, but you have to make an appointment. You're still hearing me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so basically all social life is halted. Cultural, social, and sports activities are stopped. At our university, we even stopped offering the classes a few days before the government announcement. And this leads to a new reality, maybe, and an uncertain situation because nobody really knows what will happen in the future. So all of this discussion will be in certain aspect hypothetically. So at this moment in Belgium, we're seeing already a small restart of social interaction and sports. More about that will come in the later questions. Challenges for Panathlon in Belgium. We are not a big movement in Belgium. All clubs have canceled their meetings, and we hope that this meeting will inspire us in Belgium to also start holding online meetings to keep the network together. In Belgium, Panathlon is mainly known to the public, the general public, for the Charter of Fair Play for kids in sport, which includes rights like the right to have fun and to have play, or to have to be in competition on their level, which focuses on seeing sport as a social platform. An example I want to give for this social platform is that, for example, last year our club awarded in their yearly award ceremony the president of a local football club who organize football trainings for children from Antwerp region from disadvantaged backgrounds, poorer families, troubled home situation, many children living together in small apartments. The children depend on this club not only for football trainings, but also for like homework sessions, personal guidance. Since personal contact was not allowed in these periods, not all these kids have full access to smartphone or to laptop like us to stay in touch. and a lot of potential problematic situation might have been developed. So this illustrates the importance to focus on Panathlon values immediately after, already now, and also in the restart of sports in society. So like Bramante also mentioned that it's needed that we find a purpose as Panathlon, but maybe that will depend on our region where we are living in. I think in Belgium it will be our goal that our stakeholders like sports clubs, federations, do not forget the charter they all signed, do not forget the disadvantaged groups, minorities, and the social safety net that sports provides. I think Mario also touched this by mentioning the social corporate responsibility of all people involved. So the worst fear for us as a Panathlon movement is that these things might be overlooked. So our role as a Panathlon family should be focusing also the attention of clubs, federations, and all stakeholders on the importance.
Definitely. And I completely agree when you mentioned that the restart of things that are now having, well, that you're experiencing now in Belgium, that this is something that is happening. We also see that in Portugal. We are also starting again to have the restaurants open, and it was this week. We have several things ongoing. So indeed, and we hope to inspire, we hope to inspire you to also do this kind of meetings. We had one last month regarding postponing of Olympic Games, which we will have a brief discussion also in this session. So yeah, it's the second session, as also Mario, the PC Lisbon president, was mentioning. So yeah, thank you very much, Niels, for your intervention and also for your insight on this topic. So I would continue. And again, I mean, COVID-19 is a huge challenge for us, is a huge challenge for everyone, for Panathlon International, for the PCs as well, and for PCU. I mean, we already talked a little bit about it, and now it would be interesting to know a little bit more in concrete what is our role and what is our task in this. I mean, we know, and we are all aware of the OMS specific recommendations that we received. And what I would like to know is, taking consideration also your local experience. Can you tell us a little bit about the impact and the implementation of this with regards not only but also federations, sporting clubs? Is anyone adhering to this, to those recommendations? Because indeed, if we want to make a safe return, we really have to have this in mind. Niels, because you were now the last one speaking, and if possible, I would like to give you already the floor to also intervene in this topic. And yeah, I would like you as first participant to mention a little bit about this.
Okay, Fabio, please stop me if the time, my allotted time is up.
I will.
So, of course, it's in my opinion, it's such an uncertain situation at the moment. So sports are restarting now, at least in Belgium. I have the impression also, for example, in Portugal. In Belgium, now it is allowed to do outdoor sports for up to 20 people with a coach and respecting full World Health Organization guidelines. And most people in the organization will also follow these rules because they do not want to be a COVID hotspot or to create a new lockdown. But still, no competitions of any kind can take place for 2 more months. So it seems like we're waiting for the number of daily hospital admittances, which is an indicator, to drop very low, because then there will be less risk of having the virus when you actually have physical contact with somebody. Because if we ever want to play rugby again, we will have to be in physical contact with each other. So this can only if we have a near certain guarantee that none of us rugby players, for example, will have the virus. So I think everything will start up very slowly, following guidelines. It will impact the working of sports on all levels for a long time. There will be differences between professional sports and grassroots sports, because professional teams, it will be seen as it's an economic sector. For example, in Germany, already Bundesliga started, but youth competitions will not have started up again. So in Bundesliga, they tested all players, but to have a full social sport life startup, then you have to be able to test everybody. So the challenge here will be trying to combine the safety based on what we at this moment or at that specific moment know about the virus and how to prevent its spread, and to reach a situation which is back to a socially normal situation as soon as possible, especially for, like I mentioned before, certain groups in our society who do not have the best circumstances without this social possibility to do sports and to go outside.
And that's quite a great, I would say, topic for me to pick up and to pass also the message to, or to pass the floor, let's say, to Bramant, because indeed, if we lack on this social capability to make this possible for people to intervene and to also get back, then we have a problem, I would say. And I know you mentioned that there are no competitions for 2 months. It's quite some time. I mean, it would mean that we would only, or that in Belgium competitions would only be back around July, August probably only, and that's
1st of August. This has implications, on all levels, from professional football league going to youth clubs and their workings, because they depend on membership fees to have their budgets okayed for the year. So
okay.
Yes, it's quite drastic.
Definitely.
Thanks to Duarte for sharing a nice picture of the things we cannot do at the moment.
Well, but this is, I mean, we want to get back to this. So this is, I mean, what we have currently as a challenge. Raymond, maybe that's a good point for you to enter as well.
Yes. First of all, I think I'm the only representative of under equator line in this talk. And this is very important to contextualize how COVID-19 has hit our country. First of all, it is always interesting to place the map of Brazil on the top of European countries and see how big we are and how different we are. Now, besides that, we have double information. It's not, I think it's not by coincidence that we are almost gaining this very sad competition, that we are 5th place, 4th place, now we're 3rd place, just behind US and Russia. And the political dimension of this disease is hitting very hard our country. And so besides of having health difficulties and also economic, we have to deal with this political difference between the central government and state government. So now, as we have around 300,000 cases with over 220,000 deaths, and in my hometown, I live in Sorocaba, which is 700,000 people. We have 548 cases and 33 deaths. So sports just became a side effect of the society. If we analyze sports as a cultural dimension, as a social manifestation, and we see that we are suffering also, and we're an ascendant curve, which means that we still have to go up, unfortunately. So this has impacted both professional and amateur sports. Professional sports, athletes are practicing in their places. There is no expectation to return to play regular leagues, and what we call amateur sports, practically no activity. You know, we are under a very severe obligations. So that's the scenario, the political, the economy, and also the sports scenario in Brazil.
Yeah, thank you very much. No, indeed, I mean, you are right. If we compare size of Brazil with many countries, including with Portugal, of course, there is, we see, of course, not only population-wise, but also on geography measures, let's say. And of course, I mean, when you say that the sport is just or suffered as a side effect of this pandemic, it is. I think this is more or less we all agree with this point that you're mentioning. So indeed, this is. I mean, but this is kind of the thing that I would say here in this group, are passionate, or we really love sports. So that's why we are discussing it, and that's why we have to also deliver and also to give something to try to understand how we can overcome this, because it's such an important aspect of our lives. So, and I would pass the message to Mario to have also his feedback on this.
Well, this comes to share some numbers about the Portuguese sports and what we are facing here. So we have nowadays 62 sporting federations in Portugal, representing 620,000 athletes in these 62 disciplines, and joining together people that in local organizations and local initiatives join sporting activities. Our non-official figure, because we don't have it at all, comes to close to 3 million people having any touch with sport. In the recent meeting of the presidents of the federations, and that joined together 50 out of 62, what we did realize is that everything was stopped. The question is if it was canceled or if it was suspended or postponed. Mainly, everything in the 2020, it is canceled. Meaning that even international competitions that would run in Portugal were canceled, and it comes to 57 international competitions in Portugal. So when we discuss these kind of figures, we think that actually sports is quite a social matter, because it involves in Portugal more or less 50% of the population, directly or indirectly connected with sport. And the impact of these concealments and these suspensions and these postponements is huge in terms of economy and in terms of social welfare. And this, we will come to this topic, what Panthlon Clube can do just to address this topic. And one of the major problems we will face is these people, these thousands and thousands of people, are quite a way out of sport for a long time. So is there any guarantee that they will return back to sport? Is there any guarantee that kids will come back to sport? Parents will come back to sport. Parents will have money to pay for kids to come to football schools and other schools. Will the local government have money or bet on funding local and grassroots sports? So this comes to the overall change of resuming sports that will come back afterwards. But in Portugal, everything is concealed. Even my federation, which I am president, which is Football Federation, concealed all the competitions as they were in March. Hopefully, we will think a little bit on resuming the sports, starting new season sometime next October, if everything is okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Mario. So yeah, indeed, I think that's quite, you quite hit a nerve here. I mean, sport is indeed a social matter, and I think that's key here. While having 57 competition, as you mentioned, postponed or canceled, it is a huge number. And we are speaking about competitions, and we are not mentioning how many people are involved in those cancellations or postponings. And that number is quite it is quite higher than just the 57 competitions, let's say. I mean, and that's key here. We should really focus also on that. So I would pass also the message now to Simona, if possible.
Yes, I can speak about what happened in Panathlon International Club in this pandemic emergency, the impact of the corona on the club of the Panathlon. Because Panathlon give all the club to follow the OMS recommendation, especially those who are most vulnerable to the virus. So send several communication to its member to not continue activities involving physical contact and to follow the recommendation indicated by the various government. So the Panthlon Club, alongside the spirit of service that was spontaneous and immediately, the club, areas, district, and Panthlon International tried to stay in touch to save the society, the sociality and friendship that are the basis of our partnership. We haven't lost our spirit of imagination. Everyone has worked and developed the best cyber weapons to use communication system. Even those who believed they were too far ahead with the years. They have become the best expert in Android, tablet, WhatsApp, Zoom. If you enter in the Panthlon International website, in the member news area, we will find a back band with the heading COVID-19. Here you can find the some initiative I was talking about. Especially in the last month, many clubs have decided to hold meetings among members to address various issues. Some have made virtual round tables and interview with the sport personality. Others still use the WhatsApp or video conference platform to bring together the members of the directive bodies, stay in touch, exchange opinions, and make decisions, as your club immediately did, and with which I highly congratulate. I therefore believe that this month of emergency have been faced very well, thanks to computer tools that have allowed us to continue to stay in touch and work together. These are many actions from Panthlon Club, no in the sport club, because now it's all stopped, but with to help and to help hospital to buy materials for coronavirus in the spirit of service.
No, that's important. I really liked one sentence that you mentioned, Simona, which is we didn't lose the spirit of innovation. So indeed, this is something that we cannot lose. I mean, we have to reinvent ourselves, and this particular situation, we really have to see how we can overcome it. We just have to keep on doing things. We just adapt ourselves. I mean, that's core message here. And maybe I would just ask also Gabriel on his opinion about this.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. You know, dear friends, the impact of coronavirus are there and we can see them. Simona, thanks you for a very good explanation of this thing. But the main important question right now is, when do we restart a normal life in the world? When do we restart a normal life in Russia, in Africa, in Europe, everywhere. Now look, all the sport clubs, all the universities, all the games are stopped, almost stopped. And are they ready to restart after this recreation? Because we are going to have maybe in 6 months, 1 year, nobody knows how many months of recreation we are going to have. Do we have guarantee for restarting in safe conditions? If yes, when? Is it in 1 month? Is it in 2 months? Where is the deadline, the guideline from federal? Yes, all of us, we know the recommendation of OMS, not to stop sport. We can practice sport from home, not to put everybody together, more than maybe 10, 100 persons together. But how are we going to practice these sports from home and in such conditions? Okay, in Europe, for instance, you have a lot of conditions, more than in Africa. If you take some country like Russia, everything is stopped. There is no activities, sport activities. Nobody knows how to do and how to find an issue from such situation. I'm not going to talk about what is going on in Africa, but what can Panathlon family do in such conditions? What can we do to make sure that our value, the value of Panathlon, to unite everybody by sports, are still recognized as important, those values? How can we cooperate on all levels to attain those values? Okay, dear friends, if I take Russia, as you know, we are number 2 in the world now after America in cases of infected people. Many cities of Russia knows all those problems of pandemia, and the impact is quite big, not only on sport, but also in social life. Same situation in Benin and in Africa.
Gabriel, thank you very much. I mean, this is quite a.
I have a question to Gabriel. Okay, Gabriel, I understood your concerns about the resume and the return back to sport. Do you believe that, I think that there are 2 different questions here. Is that, will people have the money to resume coming to sport? This one question, because there are the registration fees on clubs, the actual, the clothes, the material, just to, whatever we need to run, to make sports, to practice sports. And secondly, the will, do they want to come to sport again after a lot of months away from sports? What do you think about this?
No, I think, Mario, you are quite right. You know, it's sport, that depends on the kind of sport. You take a kind of sport like football, it needs a lot of money. You have to involve a lot of money for infrastructure, for everything. Okay, now by this condition, coronavirus, this pandemic, you can stay at home and practical sport, not football. Okay, for many clubs, for many countries, maybe for many people, it's better for them to see athletes sitting at home and organized by internet, by a computer, esports. Why not? So I'm not sure after this pandemic, sport will return to a normal situation we were facing. Maybe we in the Panathlon family, we have to think and find an issue, a solution, what to propose to the world after the pandemic. But I'm not sure people will be, if you take a country like Africa, to come back to sport after this recreation will be very difficult, especially for the government who don't have money, who don't have a budget to support sport. They were not knowing how to fund an issue. I'm not sure we'll return back to normal position after the pandemic.
No, and in fact, and also related to this topic, we received a question from Eugenio Guglielmino. Sorry, I hope I have read the name correctly. And his question is really also touching what you just mentioned, Gabriel. So in this very hard moment, why don't we support or increase esports? Again, esports is something that can be made we can, and we just have news that we have received. I would say in the last couple of weeks that esports grow, and that it's still growing. And of course, this question maybe I would like Bramante to have an answer on it, and Niels, if possible as well.
Yes.
Well, I think
Antonio, please go ahead.
Sorry,
I'll go
I'm sorry. I think these are very challenging questions. I would say that I'm very positive, because I think development normally comes on crisis. And I think we will be able to overcome this situation and create new options. And the only thing I don't think it will be normal anymore. And then again, it will be the new normal. The new normal adapting the circumstance that we have. And I also believe that the two questions posed by Mario, very interesting. People who have the money and desire to return, yes, I think they will. I think when we can feel that when the people can go out, they don't see, they just want to go out and do something. Now, maybe what Panathlon may have to do is to enhance the understanding of sport and put together physical activity. And for instance, Netshoes e-commerce is the largest Latin American e-commerce in our region. They're not selling balls for football or basketball, but they grew 2,500% selling mats, rubber bands to exercise inside the home. You know, this may be a new concept of sports, moving the body. You know, that's something that I think Panathlon could enhance the idea, the concept of sports.
Thank you very much. Niels, your view on this, on the question mainly regarding esports, the challenges, if indeed in this situation we could increase it.
For sure, I'm convinced that people will come back to sports, even if it takes a really long time, because people want to go out and do sports in a group. They love everything about it, so they will come back. But maybe the structure of how sports has been organized up until now, locally, internationally, maybe the structure needs to change a little bit to allow for new circumstances, maybe a temporary lower economy situation, which might lead to, as I think Mario mentioned, that some people will not have the money to be part of a football club, but that will not make them not play football in the streets with their friends in the end. So they will play sports, they will move. Esports, I think at the moment it fills the void of competition, because not only there is no sports, you can do, as Antonio mentioned, you can do your own training at home, but it's training, it's not the feel of a competition. And this is a void in which esports has maybe now the possibility to promote itself to the international sports family as a valuable addition, since still there is different voices. Is it a sport? Is it not a sport? It will be looked at in a new light, and I hope also esports itself will adapt to this situation.
Neil, if I may
Yes.
ask you, sports is a very broad term. Okay, I would recommend that we separate the competitive sport, the sport which leads to championships and tournaments, whatever, and the sports the way we practice anything, like badminton, whatever, and ball, whatever. So what is now closed at all is the competitive sports. When I mentioned the federations and the president federations, what they consumed were the competitions. So there are no championships, no cups, no nothing, okay? People can play whatever they can, but they can't compete. And there are a couple of skills that are values of sports that actually we can't practice out of the competitive sports, like discipline, respect, friendship, leadership, resilience, teamwork, whatever. So those values come out of putting people in front of a big challenge, and big challenge is competition, okay? It's okay, people can go outside to a garden and play football with their friends or whatever, but this is not sport. Or we can say that this is sport anyway, this is sporting activity. But what I would like you to take in consideration is one thing that I think it is a huge opportunity, is for sports in schools. Whenever we will resume having the school works, because in Portugal, for instance, everything is stopped. There are some years in the college and kindergarten that are just resuming, but when we have kids in the schools, this is a huge opportunity for sports in school. And it is here that I think that we will bet just to keep kids interested more than the other times in the past where sports in school were very weak anyway.
So, Niels, do you want to answer?
Sorry, that's the sport in school aspect you mentioned is really, really interesting. I hope Paul Standaard, who I'm seeing in the audience, is listening to this also, so we can take this up back in Belgium, because I think Mario is absolutely right that it's a huge opportunity for sport in schools, not tertiary, not university, but before we're in mandatory school age. There are huge possibilities. Since I don't know how it is in Portugal, classes in Belgium for certain classes have resumed, but they can fill only half the classes, so they need to entertain the other half of the group in a different location. And here, sports can be it can be a huge opportunity indeed.
Yeah, indeed, and I agree. And I would just now go a little bit back to Gabriel's intervention when he mentioned and it was indeed the questions that I think everyone has as well. I mean, are we ready for a restart? I mean, are we able to get back to normal life? And this is, I think, a question that also connects with one of the topics that we want to discuss with you. We all know the Olympic Games got postponed from this year to next year. And the thing is, are we ready to have an Olympic Games edition of 2021? Is it realistic? I mean, we are discussing at the moment, and it's, a year away, let's say, if we are able to restart, if we are able to get back to competition, and do we have the capacity and also the possibility to count with an edition in 2021? This is a question that I would like, and I would maybe ask Bramante to start on this question. Bramante?
I was muted.
Yeah.
So this is another challenge issue, because beside the ideal of Olympic Games, the idea of fair play, there is a pressure, an economic pressure. So again, we're dealing with economy and ideal of the competition. I think by what I have read and what I have seen, I'm a member of a group of study and research on sport management. and we have at least 2 people very experts in this area. And they say that maybe we will not be ready due to health challenges, but the economic pressure from sponsors will be very hard, and this may help amateur sports to return. So it's like a cycle, you know, a virtual cycle. And I think the Olympic Games next year will be very important because experts say that it will take at least 2 to 3 years to go back to normal. What we call today would be normal.
But Antonio, will it be possible or not?
Yes, I think it will be. I think it will take place. And this is my opinion, but what I have read and talked to people, that we may think that there will be some health challenges to overcome. But I think there will be pressure from sponsors to have the Olympic Games. That's today my opinion. As COVID-19, I may change tomorrow.
Mario, passing the message to you now. Do you think it's possible?
Okay, well, what is a shame in terms of Olympic Games is that whatever started in the beginning of last century as a amateur sport and where people will enjoy playing the better sport as possible, turn out as a good business, okay? So the Japanese government came to say that they lost $6 billion with the postponement of the Olympic Games to 2021. And Fabio was saying that we are 1 year out from the next games. But as far as I'm aware, because I'm following my colleagues from the presidents of the other federations, there are already people booking hotels and booking the flights. And this, until mid-July, everything has to be booked. And so it's again another $6 billion of lost if nothing happens in 2021, meaning that I understand that the major pressure for Olympics next year will be the economic piece. But anyway, the Olympic Games join all the countries, and you can, if you watch it, the US that bring some cents of medals have nowadays 100,000 deaths. How many of 1,500,000 people will affect sports and athletes to prepare themselves to the Olympic Games? And Brazilians, you in Brazil have a delegation of 174 people coming to Japan. How much of these guys are able to prepare to have a good performance in the next Olympic Games? If you understand, for instance, Europe, overall Europe, Italy, you, Simona, how many people there in sports in Italy are prepared to start the preparation to the Olympic Games? So as the Olympic Games join together people for overall all the globe, even the Russians, were keen of, it was good for Russia, the postponement, because they have the chance to participate in 2021. But anyway, with the spread of coronavirus in Russia, how many chances do they have to prepare themselves to the Olympic Games? So I think that we will have to wait until September or October this year just to understand if there will be or not the Olympic Games. That's all.
Thank you very much, Mario. And I think that was already a small passing the floor to Simona. I mean, asking a little bit if Italy would be ready for this, if athletes in Italy would be ready for this. What do you think, Simona? Will we have an edition of Olympic Games in 2021, or is it something that we will not have?
Well, I agree with Antonio Bramante in this case, because I think that the economic pressure are very, very great. And also the International Olympic Committee is providing up $800 million to deal with the consequence of the postponement of the Tokyo Olympic Games. And there are many money. So as Mario Almeida said, the athletes will be not able to prepare the Olympic Games, but I think it's equal for everyone, equal for every country. Is a pandemic worldwide, so Italian will be able to prepare the Olympic Games like Portuguese, Russian, and everyone. And at least I think the Olympic game will be done. This is my opinion. In October we can see how will happen.
Okay, thank you very much. And indeed, it's I think it will be in the upcoming month. We will have a more clear view on this topic. Gabriel, what is your opinion? I mean, you also got the floor passed a little bit by Mario, so now you have it.
Okay, you know, Fabio, if you don't keep people busy by some activities, they will find another activities to do. Be sure. But are there going to be good activities? Nobody knows. The second thing that I hope and I believe that is necessary to Olympic Games to be organized in 2021. Yes, all of us, as Mario, Antonio, Simona, all of them talk about it. There's a very big pressure, economical and political pressure. But it will be possible in 21 only if we find a vaccine very fast. We don't know how are we going to win the virus in the next coming months. If we do it very fast, it will have chance to see the Olympic Games in 21. The second thing is, okay, how are we going to organize those games? Is it with less spectators? We change the style of organization or not? That depends on what we really need and what we are waiting for from those games. Now, as people you were talking, Russia is banned from this Olympics game. Hello?
I'm listening. Hello.
I'm listening. Okay, Russia is banned from those games. Okay, up to next time, to next year, maybe Russia will change the situation. The situation will change in the world, and some countries, some big countries like Russia can join the Olympic Games. I think it is necessary.
Thanks a lot, Gabriel. I think that's quite an important questions that you left there. I mean, you left at least two questions. If I understand right, you say that the Olympic Games are possible if we have a vaccine. And I mean, the problem is, how will we organize it? I mean, we have spectators, we have lots of things that we have to think of, and this is something that we should take in consideration. Niels, what's your opinion? Maybe you could answer to those questions if you have already something formulated on that, and also finally tell us if you also think that there is going to be an edition or not of the Olympic Games in 2021.
Yeah, of course, that question is the $1 million question or the $1 billion question for the Japanese organizing committee, probably. It must not be fun to be in this organizing committee at the moment, I think. I agree with everybody else. The economic pressure is huge. Like economic pressure is huge in other sectors of society also. So, but also for the Olympic Games. But what's more is, I think it can be seen for a symbolic value. That if they can organize the games again, it will give like a moral boost to world sporting community. And that would be maybe a second reason why I think they will try everything to organize it, of course. But then will it happen? I think it will depend in how much they are be willing to compromise. Will we be able to hold it without spectators, as Gabriel mentioned? Will they have enough from the budget from television rights? Will sponsors remain on board if they can redress the venues with no public, but you can see more sponsors? They will have to reinvent their entire business plan. And then for athletes, they will be able to travel to the games in 1 year, I think, but they will need to be quarantined. Maybe some will not agree, and they will say it's not fair because they will not compromise. So it will be difficult either way. And actually, Simona said it's fair for everybody because it's a pandemic. I agree, but I would rephrase it as it's equally unfair as other editions. Because if I'm an athlete from the Equatorial Guinea, I not have the training facilities for my preparation for the Olympic Games as I have when I live in the Netherlands or United States. At this moment, they are saying they will hold the Tour de France. The Dutch cyclists, they live in a country which is flat. They will have no way to prepare equally because some athletes live in a mountainous country, so they will have more opportunities to train. But in the end, it will be up to certain athletes to decide whether or not to participate if the IOC decides to hold it, and it will. They will try until the last minute to hold it. If they can fly in the competitors and they can have them stay and compete in safe condition and have them checked on the virus, if enough tests are available and it's socially acceptable to test the athletes and not other parts of our society, then I think they will go ahead with it. But nobody knows. It would be 50-50% chance at the moment. I know that they will do everything.
Okay, so I think that's quite a well closure, I would say, because indeed we have all I would say also guided ourselves for the next couple of months. I think they will tell us and bring us definitely good or bad news. I think we will have to expect that, and we'll have to be prepared for that. And from what you mentioned, of course, I mean, no spectators leaves more place for sponsors. So that's maybe something that can be considered, at least from the economics perspective, let's say, even though it is debatable and this is something that we can return later on. Aren't spectators also a big part of this whole thing? And I mean, we saw now Bundesliga resuming some matches, and without spectators, it is different, at least. And Tour de France, of course. I mean, what you mentioned regarding the athletes from Netherlands, they would not have the same conditions for preparing as maybe others. This is, of course, something that is of relevance, and people that have to travel also to be able to participate. I mean, these are questions that, of course, must be also causing some headaches and some troubles to people that are actually organizing this. So yeah, and indeed, I mean, we if we think about the global value of sports, now that we have spoken so much about economics and values, and so there is a World Economic Forum report that mentions that in 2018 the value was estimated in around 471 billions, an increase of 45% since 2011. So, and the idea and the tendency, of course, was that it was growing, and we would have again, I mean, the increase was steady since 2011, and we would, if not by this pandemic stop, we would continue to progress. And this is something that, well, we now will probably see that didn't happen. And also, according to a CNN report, the U.S. economy lost alone in April 20.5 million jobs. I mean, an Eurostat report in 2018 mentioned that more than 1.7 million people work in the field of sports in the EU. And I mean, we have a problem here. I mean, layoff in the UK, but also in the United States, in Portugal, and in other European countries and all over the world, has something that has been adopted to prevent, reduce costs. And this is something that is of course, is debatable, because I mean, people are sent home, people are not working, but when we ask them to return, I mean, we will ask them to return. We have to make sports return, and who will be organizing events? Who will be organizing competitions when people were all on layoff or were sent home and were not able to engage? And this is something that I would like to listen and also debate with you. I mean, how did this health crisis impact on this situation? And from your local experience, how will this affect the return to sports? Mainly the last point that I've mentioned to you. Mario, maybe I could start.
Okay, yes, that was brought up during the meeting of the presidents of federations, and actually, if for any reason we decide to restart the competition in July, for instance, I would doubt that any of the federations were prepared to do it, because we need coaches, we need physiotherapists, we need athletes, we need pavilions, we need transport, we need everything, and everything gone away to home, and they are just in quarantine or at home waiting for good news. And so, secondly, actually, it came up to the point of the grassroots clubs. Okay, so the huge in Portugal we have more or less 30,000 clubs, small clubs of any kind, of any discipline. And what's happening to these clubs where we have the actual athletes that come to the competition? They are closed, they are broken. Do they have chances to resume activity as soon as we shut in the air, saying we will restart in September? Will they have the chance to do it? Do they have the actual infrastructure to do it? They don't. Most of the clubs don't have their own halls in pavilions. They have to rent them to the local council. But the local council, they have the pavilions still closed with no hygiene measures yet. And so if we want to go for a basketball match, we don't have the pavilion to do it because they are closed. So there are a lot of things that come in round circle. And I think that we have to wait, but actually we don't have so much pressure to do it. So life is big in front of us, so we don't have to put some pressure to do it next month. But whenever we do it, we'll have to have 3, 4, 6 months just to resume calmly all the competition.
Okay, thank you very much. That is indeed a challenge, and as you mentioned, I mean, and that was also enforcing what the introductory message that I also gave. I mean, we have a problem now. We have people not on the field, let's say, and that's the return is therefore, well, I would say compromised if we would now reestablish it today or next month. Gabriel, on this topic, what is your insight? Microphone.
Okay. Is it good now? Okay. No, as Mario was talking about, because of this situation, the economic situation of clubs and teams, everything, you can see that many people resign. Okay, they are out because they don't have the possibility to pay for the staff and so on. But believe there are some clubs, there are some organizations. If you say you take FISU, for instance, we still keep all our staff 100%. Maybe we'll be obliged to do it in some few months. We don't know how everything will change, but we're still keeping the staff, because if you lose them today, tomorrow it will be very difficult to get them back. And the core mission of Panathlon values of fair play, they are still respected. It is the right of children in sport, it's integration through sport, and this must be the role of all clubs of Panathlon. Because the post-COVID situation will come. We want or we don't want, in 6 months, in 1 year, it will come, it will be ended, we'll win. But what will be the situation after that? That is the reason why I think the Panathlon clubs have to be very, I don't know, care with this situation. Try to keep the staff. I know there is no money. They have to discuss with government and with countries to keep the staff in 100%. Yeah.
Definitely. And that is something that we should keep in mind. And I took here some notes, and as you mentioned, of course, it would be possible. It would be good to have the staff at 100%. So the return would be easier like that, I would say. But of course, if you don't have the ways to make it happen, and you mentioned, of course, being able to pay and support, then of course it is something that might not happen. Niels, what is your insight on this?
Yes. Again, I agree with previous speakers. We should make there is some difference between professional sports and what we should call amateur sport or grassroots sports. So for professional sports, it's an economic sector. So it has a business model, and each sports club or federation or different sport will have their own business model. For example, cycling, they purely top the elite athletes in cycling. Their teams depend purely on funding of private companies funding. If these companies, due to this crisis, cannot fund anymore, then the top of international cycling will be really heavily handicapped. While football has some more options to have income from possible ticket sales or from more TV rights. So the impact will be grave, but will, in my opinion, depend on the situation of each sport in each country, how it is funded, how it's subsidized, and maybe here the grassroots clubs, the small clubs who don't have a lot of cost, who rely on volunteers and don't have hired staff, they will maybe survive more easily. Still, the top sport, professional sport, it also acts as an inspirational model for youth to do sports. So it is an important sector to keep alive. But maybe this will mean that in some sports, top athletes will earn a little less money the coming years. And as we have seen now already in football, players have been cutting wages, and maybe the new normal will be less exuberant fees for them, and hopefully a way to keep on board all of the supporting staff for each club, which is vital as the players for the function of each club or federation. So yeah. Layoffs will be inevitable, but in the end, the system as a whole will probably restore itself. But how long it will take?
That's the question. That's the main question.
Fabio, sorry. Sorry Fabio, io devo partecipare a un'altra videoconferenza, per cui sono costretto a lasciare. Grazie, molto
Thank you very much.
interessante e grazie.
Thank you.
Grazie, Ugo.
Grazie, grazie, arrivederci.
Grazie Ugo.
Ciao.
Grazie, Ugo.
Ciao.
Vai, Ugo.
Indeed, I mean, this is, and let me pick up on this, Niels. You mentioned business models, and of course, for professional sports, and that is clear. I mean, football has, of course, more options, and cycling depends on funds. That is something that is widely known. Amateur sports, you mentioned, because they have reduced costs, they have a higher probability, let's say, of having a higher survivance. The thing here is maybe, yeah, I think Mario probably would have something to say on this topic, because he mentioned and he was very active, let's say, on the topic of the athletes that yeah, will they return, will they not return, and especially in those amateur clubs and amateur sports that we are talking about, will they return? Mario, maybe you wanted to say something.
Well, Niels told something that is reasonable, is that small clubs actually do rely on volunteers. So the costs are very reduced costs. The huge problem is with the bigger clubs that pay very expensive coaches and other staff. Anyway, I think that if I'm just thinking about my discipline, where I am president of the federation, is that actually I know that they have a cloud of people. I don't know where they are. So my doubt is when I ring the whistle, if they come up easily, because they have to be structured in clubs. If they have to have the money to pay the registration fees of the clubs, they have to have their parents that allow them to come if they are juniors. And so there are a lot of challenges before this. Anyway, you didn't hear Antonio about this topic. And just, I think that Brazil is one of the continents, so it is not a country, actually, that I know very well, because my mother was from São Paulo. You do have tens of thousands of clubs. What's happening there in Brazil, if I may ask you?
No, definitely, and we will pass the message to Bramant and also to Simona, which didn't speak. So I would ask now Bramant to have some insight on this topic, and then we would go with Simona. Bramant.
Yes, we have. We did a census. We have over 15,000 social clubs registered. Most of them, amateur athletes play in those clubs. Now, as far as professionals, for instance, we have a local team in my city, more than 100 years old. I mean, there is a tradition in with the fans, but plays in the second level league. What we see here is this negotiation, cutting salaries so we will survive. Now, as I say, COVID-19 is very democratic, but at the same time, socially hit lower classes. So what we have seen is that this negotiation differs from place to the others. For instance, Flamengo, our dear masters coach from Portugal, they're coming back, and they test almost every day or every week, and they had more than 20 people in the staff with COVID, so they had to restart again, and 3 athletes. So what I think is we have developed a gap. We are a little bit scared with this COVID-19. So I think clubs are a little bit far from fans. Maybe we should have a better use of this type of internet, so we could have athletes performing, how they do their everyday life, maybe how they could debate in groups. So people won't forget these athletes. I see this at professional level. And for instance, in Brazil, the past 3 Sundays, on Sunday, on the same time, they would normally broadcast soccer matches. They're bringing matches such as the final of the World Cup, and it's unbelievable how people will cheer. You know, we know the results already, but we're cheering at the same time in the morning. We have Ayrton Senna running, you know, with his car. After 20 years, and people are just keeping alive with this. We should not be separate. We should bring some strategies to come closer.
Definitely, and on this topic, I have one question from Eric Avila, who is also attending. So hi, Eric. Because we are still speaking in this topic about the return. Also, I mean, this is quite important to think that this crisis is happening, and we know that it actually affect. But we also need to keep thinking and also try to define measures that permit us to be able to return. And the question from Eric is basically with regards in Brazil, and that's why I would like to know your opinion, Bramant, on this. Is how is it the status of the return of public and sports activities? What are local authorities thinking of doing? Because from what I read from Eric, this is quite a hot topic actually. So do you know, or do you have any opinion on this?
Yes, at this moment, everything is closed, and we say here that our arenas that were developed for health purpose now is served for disease purpose. You know, many of them transform in hospitals. In Sorocaba, we have a very important team on indoor soccer team. As the world champion, but their arena has been transformed in a hospital. This is happening all over the country. So we should remember we have 1,600 municipalities in Brazil in the 26 states. So most of them are closed, but we have some background. You know, I think we did not take advantage of the what we call the lost decade in sports from 2007 to 2016, from the Pan American Games to Olympic Games that we held in Brazil. So again, in terms of a public policy for sports at local level, we also lost our Ministry of Sports. I mean, we have several points that we have considered. So it'll be difficult, even more difficult for local sports, amateur sports, to open their gates to bring those kids back.
Thank you for the answer. I hope Eric has his questions now at least covered. And thank you for the question, Eric, as well. Last but not least, also on this topic, Simona, what is your insight on this, please?
Yes, thank you. I think that, as you have already said, this crisis will leave a trace for a long time, still throughout the economy. A recession is expected. Unfortunately, sport suffer and will suffer in the short and medium period. As you know, sport generates values of wealth and employment levels. It is estimated that in Italy, about 20,000 people work in the world of sport and in the sport industry, and represent the 4% of the GDP between the direct and indirect economy. In Italy, rugby, volleyball, basketball championships are already been suspended, while football has not yet given up, and the reasons are easy to understand. In the Serie A in Italy, championship is not revived. The football clubs will lose 230 million television rights that they also use for the August transfer market. But while the big football club have the big companies behind them to sustain and support them, those that will suffer the most of the post-lockdown recovery phase are the small club and sport association that will have to adapt to the new rules of social distancing by making investments so that the number of members of the user by force of things will fall drastically. It is estimated that they will work at 30% of the potential despite having the same cost, indeed higher for health adjustment. Government will have to take the situation into account and try to help sports clubs, which also have a social function. I have read in recent days, that, for example, that the Swiss Confederation has already allocated aid to the International Sport Federation that have their headquarters in Switzerland, excluding those with huge revenues, such as FIFA. This freezing of all activities led to a very serious crisis, of which we can only assume the effect. But at least for a year, maybe, relations, society, and the sport world will certainly change.
Definitely, definitely, and I mean, what you mentioned regarding government needs to support sports is indeed something that I think we have to also pass as a message. We really need support, and this is something that we cannot and shall not forget. Especially, and I think this is also a topic that I would like to discuss with you, because indeed we have been facing several issues, and we Panathlon movement have been addressing them with our monthly sessions, with our conferences as well, with our ways of touching also these topics. And indeed, before this health crisis that we are now facing, we already had several challenges that we had to face. We had match fixing, we had sexual violence and harassment, doping, racism in sports, hooliganism. But we also had sports in school. So we had many topics that were somehow freezed due to this current situation. But slowly they are coming back. And I mean, some of them didn't leave the picture at all, I would say. Some of them are now coming back. For example, we've heard last week here in Portugal, some fans going cheering a local club. And well, we are not really aware if the measures of social distancing were or not respected. We also heard about lately about some hooliganism between clubs fans, let's say, here in Portugal. And while we have the current situation, so it was, if I'm not mistaken, this week. So these are topics that are still very actual, and that we did not or were not speaking very much about them on this. So Mario, I would pass the floor to you now to give us a little bit insight on this. Do you have any particular topic that you'd like to address?
Yes, You were explaining this last point, and I was remembering a very similar issue, comparing with my idea about topics in sports that are a little bit forgotten by these days, which is when you told people, everybody at home, what happened in Portugal is that domestic violence increased a lot, because you join husband and wife that usually are separate, and they have huge problems in domestic violence. It's meaning that nobody speaks about domestic violence nowadays, but it happens. And the example of the hooliganism that happened 2 days ago on the street, broadcasted by the Portuguese TV channels, with people fighting one against each other, different clubs, makes us remember that these were the huge problems of sports before COVID. And so we should understand that they are actually sleeping problems, but they will resume and start in selected mode as soon as the sports is resumed. Okay, so in Portugal we have the organized funds problem, actually, as you know, racism as well. We have other problems like sexual harassment with kids. We have other problems that happen in sports. So as soon as the sports restart, we'll have to be prepared just to face these problems. Okay.
Thank you very much. And if possible, I would pass the message directly to the floor directly to Niels, also to have an insight on this.
Okay. You can hear me, Fabio?
Yes. Thank you. I can hear you.
Yes. So, of course, none of the usual or the mentioned topics should be forgotten in this situation. And from a Belgian point of view, I think they will not be forgotten. Instances who are already working in the field of anti-doping, anti-racism, they are still active. I think as a Panthlon movement, we need to support our local initiatives, which will be taken by different stakeholders. There is a saying, never waste a good crisis. There is now opportunities to implement some of these things Panathlon has been focusing on for its entire existence, to integrate them more in what will be the new normal. So coming to a sport club should not be accessible only for the ones who can pay it. Social structure should be in place to allow all parts of society to participate equally in sports. But I find it a difficult question because at the moment the situation is so uncertain. Decisions will be taken by government, international federations, so it's difficult to already propose detailed ideas about it, I think. Yeah, sorry. I will conclude here, Fabio. I think that will be especially the role of Panathlon to come back out of this crisis in the sports society, which is socially inclusive for all.
No, and indeed, I think this is something that we have been doing and that we have just to keep on doing, because of course those topics, as I have mentioned, did not stop, and as you also addressed correctly. So maybe I would just ask Gabriel to also give us his insight on this.
Yes, Fabio, you know, before the health crisis, before the COVID-19, we were facing many challenges in sports, as we were talking about. as match fixing, sexual violence, and harassment, doping, racism in sport, hooliganism, and so on. But believe a lot of effort has been done by all of us, and some results are there, we can see them. But coronavirus showed to the whole world, Fabio, that we are equal. That what the challenges we are facing are common. Not racism, not violence. We have to face a small virus who put everybody, Europe, Africa, Asia, on the same level. But now I'm sure enough that this opportunity, this quarantine, this coronavirus is an unique opportunity for all of us, for when everybody is at home, when people with their family can look at TV, they can look at the world another way, to continue to speak and motivate people and supporters. We don't have to stop talking about those challenges. And coronavirus teach us to look at the world another way. But we have to be careful. Fabio, today, if you ask a team from China to come to Africa for a competition, they will say no. We don't want people to bring virus to our continent. The same thing, you ask a team from Africa after 1 month to come to Europe for a competition, you will have a lot of problems. So we have to be careful. And as Niels was talking about, Panathlon has to play a very big role during the coronavirus, during the pandemia, and after. The period after is the more difficult period we are going to face, to return back to normal life, to believe to each other, to be sure that, Fabio, when I meet you and shake your hand, I'm not taking any risk until all the world do the vaccine or something like that. So I'm sure we have to continue to do this work. Panathlon clubs are doing very well this job, and I'm sure if we continue like that, we will be facing very well those challenges and remove those things from our common life.
Definitely, definitely. And I fully support what you just mentioned. And I just have a small challenge now for Simone and also for Bramant, because we are 3 minutes from closing, and I would like to have a closing word or some closing words from Mario. So Simona, if possible, could you just give us your opinion on this topic?
Yes, of course. I think this problem or these topics, one sport will start, the problems will start again. So it's important for Panathlon International to continue to discuss within the Panthlon Club, Congress, Conference about this. Is important to propose our values and so on. So this is a very challenge for Panathlon must face in order to contribute to the different issues and problems that involve the sport. The Cultural and Scientific Commission of Panthlon International, with the district president and the international board, have also indicated another theme of very interesting before the pandemic emergency that we hope to discuss in the next international congress that I hope will made in October, if everything goes well. And the theme is the role of sport and physical activity in the aging process. And I hope to discuss it together very soon if we can.
Thank you very much. Bramant, your turn.
Well, this time, if I may, I'll read it so I won't go far from the time that I have. what I have here, of course, we deal with these types of undesirable behavior in sports, but at least in my country, specifically in my city, these issues seem not to be part of debates, particularly inside the Panathlon, local Panathlon clubs. I should mention that these issues occupy a significant part of the Panthlon International Scientific Culture and Education Commission agenda during our annual meetings and Congress. And I would like to mention one example that she is with us here. We have 3 of 6 and she's here. Anitivas, she's from England, who is a former director of the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children, Child Protection Sport Unity. She has brought to us several examples of sexual violence and harassment worldwide. So this, I should say, is a very hot topic in our commission, and we tend to bring these topics always in our Congress. As Simona mentioned, we'll have this year's, which was start to be discussed last year.
Thank you very much, Roman. Indeed, I think this session that we had today that lasted the 2 hours that we had promised you was indeed, we could and we had some exchanges, some relevant and important exchanges. We took, I think everyone took some notes on what are the challenges that we will face and things that we can adapt and see. And from my point of view, and also from my side, a very big thanks to you all for participating. I will pass the floor to Mario Almeida for closing words. And yeah, thank you very much again, Mario.
Hello. So on behalf of PC of Lisbon, many thanks for your participation, Nils, Simona, Antonio, and Gabriel. You were great. Thank you, Fabio, and Duarte and the back office. We don't see him, but he's working toughly in this event. So this was recorded, and it will be available for people to review the session, and we will become later on with another initiatives. Thank you very much. Have a good night, good afternoon, or good morning, wherever you are. Thank you. Bye.